Alrighty, everyone. Hey, welcome to Tough Conversations on Money and Your Choices. I am Cameron, and this is Blake, the co-host. We blog at blakeandcameron.com, and we're jumping into a really interesting topic tonight on money. We're going to be talking about debt and tough choices that people have made and the consequences of their choices. It's centered around a New York Times article that Blake just recently put in the chat window there. So highly encourage you to maybe pull it up and scroll through it. But basically what that article has done has profiled this woman named Liz Kelly. She's a high school teacher out in Missouri. And believe it or not, she's $410,000 in debt.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. We're really excited. As an introduction, I am Cameron, and I live out in Denver, Colorado. I'm married, but with no kids, and I'm an entrepreneur, and my wife is a nurse. Blake, what about you?
Hey, I'm Blake. Good evening, everyone. And I'm an active military officer outside of Washington, D.C. I live here with my wife and two kids, and we just got to the area not too long ago. And so we're just settling in and getting to know DC, but it's great to be here with you, Cam. And I got to tell you, when I read that article, you sent it to me the other day. It's just fascinating. I mean, great. It really hooks you right at the beginning, just kind of saying this lady's over $400,000 in debt. And I wasn't really sure how to approach it. Like, is this going to be kind of a victim story or, what was it? And the article, the author really just goes down a couple different cool paths I thought it'd be cool to discuss tonight. And one, really focusing in on this lady, Liz, her choices, her intentional choices to take on more debt and to kind of repeat that process multiple times throughout her life. And then kind of the situation it's in now with that number so astronomically high, and yet it almost being a conscious decision to get there along the way. And certainly interest played a role in that and that kind of thing. But I mean, it's some extreme numbers that she went through. But I don't know if you want to kind of intro it a little bit more than that, or if you want to just jump right in. You take the lead, bro.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that first off, to everyone that's watching, if you have questions or issues that you'd like Blake and us to talk about, or just something that you'd like us to address, definitely type it there in the comments. We're all about the engagement factor. So just a quick summary of the story, and we'll talk about the story a little bit, but more so how it applies to you, me, us, in general moving forward. But Liz Kelly, she was married at one point, and didn't go to college right after high school, but eventually did go to college. She wanted to be a teacher at one point, so she went and took out several thousands of dollars in loans to become a teacher. Then decided after graduation, maybe I'll try the law school route, and so she took out some more loans for law school, and then dropped out of law school after about a year and a half because, of course, she got married and she started having kids, and took a step back from traditional work. But then yet again, she decided to apply to grad school, and at one point even went and tried to get a PhD for a little bit. So sort of the story seems to be a lot of dabbling in different things and never really settling in on a career choice, but always taking out debt on each of these decisions and choices she made. I'll look here to give a few of the numbers. So she took $26,000 out to get her undergrad. She went to those 3 semesters of law school at $37,000 in debt. So we're up around $68,000 right now. And then she decided to try to become a teacher. And become a teacher, it's not the highest paying job. So she went and got grad school to get a little bit higher of a salary. But she took out more loans there. And then she took out loans at different points for houses, to pay for living expenses while she was in that PhD program for a little bit. And of course, unfortunately, at some point she was divorced and she was sort of saddled with a lot of the debt from that situation.
So Cam, I know you've got some strong feelings. Maybe you're not even in the majority of thoughts on pursuing higher education and kind of people's different reasons for that. That's certainly, it's always a noble goal. It's one that's applauded, and the article kind of addresses it like, no money, no income, no problem. Department of Education is going to help
Yes.
you get that education one way or another, even if it means we'll take that payment a little bit later. But I wonder, what was your initial thought when you kind of she went to a number of different schools, but I don't know, what do you think about when you're just initially reading that?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it really made my blood boil a little bit, not in any, vindictive way, but just in feeling the pain and the frustration that she must have felt for sure. But I definitely do take maybe a less cultural approach to higher education. I think that there are a lot of people that feel that they have to get a 4-year degree just to get a 4-year degree,
Right.
and that a lot of times their career plans or the things they want out of life don't necessarily correspond with getting a degree, but yet they've taken out lots of debt to do that. And that was really reflected in this story. And I feel, just even some of my friends, they went to 4 years of school to get these degrees, but then have never applied any of that knowledge, or the whole time where I really want to open up a coffee shop, or I want to be more of a physical fitness trainer. And sure, you may need degrees for some of that stuff, but if that degree is not part of the plan, then it doesn't quite make sense to go take out all of that debt.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what her, thought process was on it. I know you and I would both, if I was sitting across from Liz before she made those decisions, some questions I would want answered in my own life, and some questions I'd want her to answer. It'd be like, okay, if you want to go to school for this particular thing, what are you going to do with it on the other end? What are you going to
Exactly.
do with this law degree? I forget what her first 4-year degree was. What are you going to do with this higher educational degree, and then even pursuing the PhD? And so I think, especially when it comes to just like 4-year college, a lot of times it's like, well, I'm going to go to college and then figure it out. I totally understand. I was in that boat. I mean, it's like after high school, I don't know. I just know I want to do something that needs college. I don't know that I would necessarily jump right into that again if I had to repeat it. It was not like a fatal mistake by any means, just pursuing the education, but the just the default mode of I'm going to go to school and then figure it out is I guess a normal one to take, but it's not right for everybody. And we say that a lot of times, like, oh, college isn't for everybody. You people that don't, aren't smart or don't want to pursue a white collar job. And it's almost like a pejorative to be like, college isn't for everybody. But the fact of the matter is, and Mike Rowe, the guy from Dirty Jobs, like he's done some really good stuff on this.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's not for everybody, and not every good job needs a 4-year degree, and not every good job needs a master's degree. And we're talking, and when I say good job, I don't mean like, oh, it's good, you can get by in 50 grand a year, but I mean to start a business or be in a trade, and work your way up in that career, it can really lead to success financially and in your vocation.
Sure.
And open up options. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and say, if you figure, you get a job at age 18 right out of high school, and you already have 4 years of work experience and income compared to your peers that go off to college during those 4 years and don't make money, usually take out debt to do it, and they enter the job market 4 years behind. Now, of course, if you do have a college degree, I mean, this research shows that you do get paid more over the length of your lifetime, but that's not necessarily the case for every single person. And so it really, that's when you have to make the hyper-specific choices for your life, your values and your goals. And so, at one point I worked at Domino's Pizza as a 15-year-old. And if I would have stayed on that track, by the time I graduated college at age 22, I would have had 7 years in Domino's, and I probably could have, been in upper management of the corporate structure or branched out to be a franchisee, owning my own business at that point as a 22, 23-year-old, compared to sort of I got out at 22 and got my first paycheck and moved on from there. But I lost a lot of potential earnings for that. Now I'm happy I went to college, and those were the choices I made because of where I wanted to go long term. But it's just shocking when you look at the story of Liz Kelly in the article we've sort of been discussing, is that she didn't quite have that plan. And if you don't make those choices, you very well could end up at $410,000 in debt like she is, and I just don't know what her future options are.
Yeah, I think, one thing that she might say if she was joining in with us would be, my plan was I'm going to pursue this graduate degree in order to, increase my income and maybe increase my options of jobs. And so what I hear a lot of people talk about just in my peer group and, reading about it is, hey, I'm going to pursue a graduate degree for those reasons, but I'm going to take on a large amount of debt because it's the income at the end of it is going to be worth it. And that makes sense because, okay, I can't pay it all up front. I'm going to take on the debt for it. And then I'll be able to pay it off a lot quicker when I make a lot more money on the outside, law school, med school, but some of these, masters in education. What Liz failed to take into account and kind of factor in was not everybody finishes that graduate program. And when she finished and when she stopped law school 3 semesters in or whatever it was, or 2.5 years in, she stopped that and she stopped her PhD program a year and a half in. They don't forgive the debt for all the semesters that you went ahead, and her income does not go up by I attended 2 years of law school. And so that's just a factor that needs to be taken into account. The fact of the matter is not everybody finishes. I mean, it's something like 48% even finish 4-year degrees in America right now. But like graduate school, I don't know what those stats are, but not everybody graduates med school. Not everybody makes a cut as a doctor, and not everybody's life is smooth sailing through your graduate program. Sometimes people get sick. Sometimes there's a family emergency. Sometimes there's a medical emergency in your own life and you can't keep up with the schoolwork or whatever. Sure. Yeah, these are unforeseen things, but the fact of the matter is the choice was made to sign on the line for X number of dollars, and now you're responsible for that with no plussed up income to show for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the title of the article is Lend with a Smile and Collect with a Fist.
That's right.
And the access to money is easy. And paying for education is usually one of the easiest parts of getting a degree or going into it for advanced schooling. Money is rarely the obstacle in that arena because as a culture and a government, we really support that, which is great and noble. But when people have easy access to the money, the thinking behind it and the repercussions and the forecasting, like you were talking about, Blake, is not necessarily put at the highest priority. And even in the article, Liz Kelly, she did get struck with an illness for a while, and that shifted her plans. But at that point, she was already in the hole, and so now she had to make more decisions. And maybe they were well thought out, but maybe they were just like, I've got to scramble to do anything, so I'm going to go get a grad school or go to grad school for teaching, when you can be a teacher without going to grad school and start earning some more money rather than delaying that income.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's seen as like an easier fix or a faster fix, a faster way to that higher income. And sure, again, in a perfect world or a nice clean world, it is, and it certainly works out for a lot of people. I mean, not everybody's in Liz Kelly's boat. I know a lot of people that have grad degrees and survive the decision, but the risk factor is, I think, what needs to be taken into account a little bit more, and not just assume that, okay, in 3 years from now, I'll be at this level, I'll be able to be hired, for this salary and everything like that, because you don't have control over it. And so the risk that you're taking on is that debt. I'm not saying don't pursue education. I'm saying think through the plan of how you're going to pay for it. And if at all costs that you can pay for it without using debt, whether that's cash flowing it, saving for it up front, and that kind of thing. Would you agree with that, Cameron? Or are you as debt averse as I would be to like pursuing a higher education degree?
I would sort of fall maybe more in the middle. I think that sort of taking out debt it would be fine in certain situations if the planning is there, if the actual facts of the matter are there. Overall, I think doing anything without debt is the way to go. But that sometimes can be too long of a period if you're working your way through school and you're in school for 8 or 9 years trying to pay for it. But overall, debt or no debt, either way, you'll be in a much healthier situation if you have done, like you said, that forecasting, that planning, even contingency planning of, okay, what if this doesn't go well? There's a huge, in the legal market, lawyers are coming out of law school with lots of six-figure debt, and they can't find jobs. And everyone has always said, hey, legal profession, great profession, go to law school, or you even use school as a buffer. Yeah, you're not sure what you want to do yet, go to law school, it'll look good on a resume. But now these people, like you said, are saddled with debt, saddled with obligation, and they either have to, find a way to work around that or start forsaking what they actually want out of their life and their values to do that. And Blake, I'd sort of mentioned or asked you, what's sort of a recent example of when you sort of had to make a long-term choice or a long-term purchase and sort of figured out, okay, is this the best choice for me? And to the people watching us, hey, type in the comments if you have a question or an issue about, hey, how do you make a wise financial choice or decision?
Yeah, I think, one part of maturity, and that's not just being a high school graduate mature. I mean, that's there are different levels of adult maturity as well. But one part of maturity is being able to put off pleasure or put off a goal into the future and not receive that kind of immediate satisfaction for a higher purpose or for a better purpose. It's not just because I like delaying gratification. It's I'm not gonna start this school program, or I'm not gonna buy this piece of technology. For me, it would be like anything with an Apple logo on it. I'm like drawn to it. This is unfortunately just the 6S or 6. I don't even know. It's like 2 years old. So I've got, I'm way behind in what my purchase, but I'm putting off that purchase in order to achieve another goal or to have cash for it and not put it on the credit card. And so to resist that immediate pleasure for right now in order to be in a better spot for it or to take other things into account is kind of very important. Kenny, jokes on their no nest. I mean, that was my example last time. I still don't have my $250 nest, but I've got a plan and we've been talking about it. So, and I've been talking to my wife about it more. So I might be getting that new nest maybe in the next 30 days. So, but that's a perfect example. A $250 thermostat is one that I'm going to put off a little bit later, even though in the immediate timeline, I want that beautiful piece of technology on the wall to be able to see it. I'm going to put that off for a little bit later. What about this, Cameron? The fact that or the way to like use school as a way to buy time. I thought that was interesting too, because I felt like that's a little bit what Liz did. We certainly have friends that do that, especially with graduate school. You graduate your 4-year degree. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to go pursue a master's in such and such or whatever. What are your thoughts on kind of doing that as as just a way to kind of buy time to make a decision later?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. A lot of people seem to be doing it. I really wrestled with it. I just got out of my previous job, and was like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but I know I don't want to do what I've been doing. And so maybe going to get an MBA would be worthwhile.
Yeah.
I really don't agree with that. I really think that, especially for anything above a bachelor's degree, I think you got to know what you want, and that's a tool to go and get it. So if you know you want to work in high level business, then go get the MBA. But you're not really going to know that unless you've been in the industry, unless you have the hands-on experience. And for my own self, getting my hands dirty in a job, in a business, or in an industry has been the best way for me to determine if I want to do it. You can learn a lot from textbooks. You can learn a lot from professors, and you obviously build a great network. But your day in, day out, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year is going to be spent doing a job and doing a task. And if it's not up your alley, if it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, I think most people are going to look back at their time and the money spent on a graduate degree and be like, man, I really could have found a better way, a better value to get some of that experience. And so, I've really tried. It's been hard because it is very comforting to be like, I'm in school and I don't have to think about things. But I have tried to resist that as much as possible and wait for sort of the light bulb moment for me to be like, I know I want to go into public policy, or I know I want to go into business or law, and then I will jump into grad school. But if I think I want to get into law, then I want to be in that industry in some way, or at least meeting regularly with people that are in that industry before I go stop earning income for 2 or 3 years and actually pay for the privilege to sit around in flip-flops and shorts.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's somewhat of a counter argument to say, well, I mean, when you pursue that degree, you're learning skills, even if you don't end up in that field. I mean, how many people you probably know a few. I know 5 or 6 like close friends that went to law school but are not practicing in the law field, at all. And of course, it's like, well, a law degree is always a good thing to have, but like the payoff or the sacrifice or the trade-off there is, that all the time and energy they put into the school, that was not time and energy put into the profession that they're currently in. And nor was it a time of making an income. Instead, they are either, paying off that debt now, or they were paying for that school. And now that they don't have that benefit of the what a lawyer gets paid kind of thing. So
sure.
I don't know. I mean, there's always two ways to think about that, but I just thought that was interesting. And I mean, for me, I think my biggest impact from Liz's story, and it applies to all of us really, is like she made choices, intentional choices along the way, but eventually that early choice forced her into decisions later on down the road and took away her options. One of that was because she had such high debt due to the choice to take it on. And so she felt like a little bit trapped, so she didn't know what to do. And I think the other piece that was going on in her head is that this is normal. Like, this is normal to do. People are doing this. Everyone else that I'm going to go to school with is doing this same thing, is signing up for this loan as well, and that kind of thing. And so I think those were just two voices in her head saying, I'm not an exception here. I'm just like everybody else. And I don't feel like I have a choice anymore because of the decision I made 3 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the power of, the peer pressure, the expectation of even your parents and your peers and your coworkers of, hey, this is sort of what you have to do, really pushes people to make those decisions before they're necessarily ready or before they're well thought out. And I see, Dr. Longobardo, there you put on, what's sort of the future of higher education? Great question. Is this sort of going to shift away? And I, for one, definitely think so. Real quickly, it's the power of the internet and distance learning, alternative forms, the fact that you can start a business at age 14, and any computer programmer, whether you're 8 or 35, is smarter than me and has probably a better, career potential than I'm going to have. And so education and higher education, as it's getting to be $50,000, $60,000 a year for private institutions, the value is just not there, especially over 4 years when you can get out and start 15 different companies in that time, have some of them fail and hopefully some of them be successful. Or if you've self-taught yourself, you can really succeed in any sort of realm, tech or non-tech. It's fascinating. And I think when you make choices and you set your own life goals and your own values, I think that is what can propel you to have the courage and the backbone to withstand culture's pressure. Hey, get a degree, get a degree, get a degree. And you can say, I don't need a degree because here's the trajectory I'm planning for my life. This doesn't fit in. Yeah. This is not where I need to be. And so I can say no, and you can mock me for a little bit, but I will be where I want to be in 10 years. And I hope you will be too, but I don't think so.
Yeah. And you're hitting on something like Andre was just saying this, like there needs to be a purpose behind your decision. You don't want to do it just because everyone is doing it. And I replied in there, like, we do so much because everyone is doing it. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that I've learned just as I've got older, but I think this is like, it's been pretty recent, like a year or two, is like, I am now getting to the point where I'm okay being even more different than the masses. And I've seen that a lot in my financial decisions, but certainly in my in other decisions in my life. But I think it's more visible now. Like I told the story of the little car I drive now, the Honda Fit, and like parking in a parking lot with big trucks and everything like that. So I'm starting to stand out. But for me, just along the lines of what you were saying, Cameron, is I now take a little bit of pride in being made fun of in my car, where a little while ago, 5-10 years ago, I certainly would not have been okay with people making fun of my car. People made fun of my car, then that would have led to a decision to probably get a different car. A little more maturity, a little more surety in my path, a little more confidence in my goals, like you were talking about, is for me, I'm willing to drive a little tiny car, not completely uncomfortable, but it's no Beamer. And be able to know that I'm reaching the goals that I want to reach, and I'm putting a focus on the things that I value, the things that are important to me. And so I've seen that in my family's decisions of just how we live. And the older I get, the more comfortable I am with that. And as far as like, this is something we should teach to high schoolers. I mean, I wish you could teach that. I mean, you want to speak that to young people, and I want to speak that into my own kids. But I mean, that's hard. That's just hard part of growing up a little bit. But it's like, hey, man, be okay. And this way I can tell myself and give myself that motivational talk in the mirror or something like, It's okay to be different. You've got a plan. It's working. Katie and I are achieving our goals, and we're working towards those. And these are the things that we find important, even though the world or my coworkers are saying these things are important.
Absolutely.
Always a way to kind of like cut down my goals or my decisions. And it's not like even anyone's trying to be mad, but it's kind of like, oh, everybody's going out. Why don't you come out? Or, we're all taking this trip to this place. Why don't you? And like, that would be fun. But that is just not on the trajectory of the goals that we have put in number 1, number 2 that we're trying to reach. So again, like last time we talked, it's filtering my decisions of whether to do something or not through that. Yeah, and I know people are lighting it up here. I'm just trying to catch up. I love that. Yeah, why have a car loan? That's just another thing that everyone thinks we need to do. Exactly. I mean, it's perfectly normal. I was thinking about it the other day. Those freaking Lexus commercials really tick me off. They're standing in the driveway and they got the red bow on the car, and the dad just says to the daughter, like, "Oh, mom deserved it, mom had a good year or something." And so he went out and got a loan for a Lexus. Like, yeah, everybody's doing it. I'm sure all my neighbors have red bows on their cars. but I mean, that's what we're told. Yeah. That's tough. I mean, Dr. Longo is talking about, a teacher, middle school, who tried to do something on his own, and it was kind of shot down for it or talked down out of it. And I mean, I think a little bit of that is kind of the hard part that we have, is not everybody's going to agree with us. I mean, not everybody's going to listen to this blab and be shaking their head up and down on some of our opinions. But I mean, one, I don't have all the answers. And two, it's okay if you disagree with me. Like, my financial choices are not forcing you into anything, and yours are not forcing into me. First you got to believe that, because just because your friend got a really good, insight on a particular investment doesn't make it right for you. You've got to weigh those choices.
Sure. Yeah. And I would say, peer pressure people to save, Tim, or Dr. Longobardo. Yeah. It's just, man, save. Everyone's doing it, right? But the thing is, we don't think that. And I've been reading recently The Millionaire Next Door. It's a book written back in the 90s, but a really fascinating look into how people accumulate wealth. And I mean, I think the key takeaway for me from that book has been, hey, a millionaire doesn't look what you think it looks like. And Blake, you recently forwarded me a podcast from the Dave Ramsey show where he interviewed 4 or 5 different millionaires and was like, hey, did you go to college? What type of job did you have? Did you inherit your wealth? What kind of car do you drive? And every single one of the answers to almost all of those was not what you would expect a millionaire to say. Oh, I've never bought a new car. Oh, I've only spent $30 on a pair of jeans ever. And in The Millionaire Next Door, he says the average millionaire has never spent more than $30,000 on a car. Yet the people who think they want to be millionaires and maybe even have the 6-figure jobs that are going to propel them to be able to be millionaires sooner than anyone else, are buying the $70,000, $80,000 cars to look the part before they're actually there. And that's a lack of education as well, when people are comparing themselves. And I live in Denver, Colorado. It's a big startup entrepreneurial scene. And you see, a 24-year-old guy driving a Tesla, and I'm really envious and jealous of that guy. And I'm like, man, I really got to get one of those things because they look awesome, and I think they are awesome. But I was like, I have no idea if that guy took out, $130,000 to pay for that. I'm debt free right now. I don't know about him, and I can only be concerned about me and where I want myself and my family to be long term.
Yep. Yeah, Andre, that keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, exactly. I tell you, the other thing, Cameron, you brought up, Tom Stanley wrote the book Millionaire Next Door. Yeah. I found it fascinating. I know I recommended it to you. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. And so Tom Stanley's book, and then that Dave Ramsey interview that I sent you, he does something called the Millionaire Hour. If you want to search on the podcast, it's Millionaire Hour. He only interviews millionaires. We're talking $2-4 million, and it's 50-year-olds who worked $70,000 jobs their whole life. But one thing, the common thread through both of those was extreme debt aversion to those people, and then spending less than they made. And those were the choices that they made. That was a value that they held highly. And it wasn't, I'm going to be uber rich and have a net worth of $4.2 million. That wasn't their thing, but it was, I'm going to live on less than I make now so that I can have a more comfortable and more prepared future. And so those were decisions those people made versus just, I'm going to spend it all like my neighbor just because, or I'm going to pursue this degree because I'm told it's a good idea. Neither one is necessarily better than the other, but if you're in that second category, that the goal or the reason why is pretty important. And so that decision that you make early on is going to have an effect and a consequence later in your life, maybe weeks or months down the road, or maybe years down the road, because it affects your ability to one, pay back your debts, the quality of life that you live. But what about for just our last topic, we just talk about like impact on the next generation. I mean, if you have kids, or or impact on, anybody else that's following in your footsteps. Like, it, just because I am able to justify a high spending attitude or actions because I'll just live on Social Security later, um, is okay. But it does nothing to help my kid out in the future. Like, I'm now not in a position to be able to help my kids, financially, and set them up for success. Not to mention like just what I'm teaching them by my actions. And so I just feel like it has that, it can have a generational impact. And so these decisions that we make are bigger than just us. And if you're a single person, the decisions you're making now about school will and can have an effect on your future family whenever that comes to light. I mean, I think sometimes it is that big of a deal to think through. Not everything has to be brought up to this, well, what are my great grandkids going to think about this? It's not really that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, big life decisions affect things in your life outside of just that category. Where to go to school is an important thing to think through. But that affects you financially. It affects you relationally and socially. It affects you family-wise. All these things that you take into account. And so your values is what should be driving those decisions, with taking into account what the future impact is and what the risks are that you're taking. Cam, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I would just say that you have to put everything through a lens. And if your lens is, I want to be just like everyone else, then that's fine. But there are consequences for that. But if your lens is, hey, I want to be financially independent by the time I'm 55, there are consequences to that as well. But if that's your goal, to have the flexibility and freedom that financial independence can bring, then go for it.
But it's tough decisions now that lead to that. And so if you're committed to that decision, then you're gonna have to say no to some things, or you're gonna get to take up an extra job or give up a hobby.
Exactly. And just one of the comments earlier, it's about sacrifice, and that's a huge component of it. As much as we'd like to think we can get everything and achieve everything, we can't. We have limited time, we have limited resources, and limited skills. And so you have to determine that. And, for our blog, Blake, right now, I'm working on a piece where I am sort of detailing for my own self and for anyone else's help how Lindsay and I, my wife, are working through planning out our next year. The amount of time we have is ridiculously small. Once you account for sleep, work, and one or two other things, it's like you don't have time for much else. You really don't. And we wanted to be hyper selective on what we're actually choosing. I wanted to pursue photography, get fluent in Spanish. She wants to learn the piano. All these things are great. We really want to do them. Some you can do for free, but we have to say, nope, piano's not going to happen this year, or maybe it's never going to happen, because we put slightly higher weight and priority on learning Spanish. And so that's what we're going to invest our time in. That's what we're going to invest our money in.
Yeah, Aaron says, wait till the kids come. Tell me about it, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kidless, so I'm living a good life compared to Blake over there.
Don't push off those piano lessons too long, because you're not gonna have time. So I would say you don't have to say never to some things, especially if it's something that you think. I feel like that's one of those things, like I talked about last time, kind of like a bucket list item. Like, okay, this is not something that we're going to choose to invest either money or our time in. And I'm fascinated to hear how you guys are kind of working through that. But I would say for you, Cameron, if there's a way that you guys can think about like things that would be really cool, but aren't going to fit where you can where on your calendar, whatever you're using, they're not going to fit. You just don't have the time. Like, don't discard them. Put them somewhere where you can see them, and then reevaluate that a little bit later. Same way we talked about like with purchases last time, and I think that'd be interesting to see what that does, because some things will be like, oh, thank God we didn't put that on there. We didn't make time. And other things will be like, you know what? This really needs to be important. We need to work this in, or next time we do our scheduling, that this is what we change about it. But then you can recognize that at some point in time you had thought through that. I don't know. It's an interesting exercise to think through. I don't have a process for that, but I'll think about that for myself. And it's certainly that time of year now where, we're about to round the clock or the calendar here into 2016. And it's such a good time to naturally kind of reset and think through those things. And so, as we all kind of look toward the end of the year and the beginning of the next, now's the time, just as much as when you're actually making a decision on what to do or what to spend on or anything like that, is to say, where am I trying to go? If you don't have that destination in mind, if your destination is being able to play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on the piano, fantastic goal and noble. You're gonna have to work on that. You're gonna have to schedule that time. And if your financial goal, then you're gonna have to put some financial priority to reaching that goal. But without that end in mind, you're not going to do it. And then you've got no way to base what to base your decisions on, other than
totally
blog I read, blab I listened to, New York Times article, or what the broke guy down the street told me as he gets into his friggin' F-250 with a $750 payment, like somebody said in the chat. So
yeah. Well, hey, I would say I think it's really fascinating. We started this with talking about debt and the choices and that New York Times article and how Liz Kelly got up to $410,000 of debt. We went into education and the value and pros and cons of grad school and even college. Just really fascinating, but it boils down to values and your choices. And your goals and what you're doing proactively, and if you're willing to say no to things and even the status quo. Hey guys, we're really appreciative of so much of the interaction.
That's awesome.
Aaron, Andre, Tom, Kenny, you guys have been great. Dr. Longobardo there. Fascinating insights from you guys. We're really appreciative. Blake and I are committed to sort of hosting a Blab at least once a week, so you can follow us, I guess, on Blab. And you'll be notified when there's the next one scheduled, but at least about once a week. We also write at blakeandcameron.com, and we send out a weekly newsletter, and we also put some blog content and written content and video content up there as well. But we're guys learning this stuff. We're in the battle of how to do this in America with the lifestyles that we want as well. And Blake and I don't always see eye to eye. But that's okay. It's about having a conversation and distilling what is important to each of us and to each of you. So we're really thankful to that. And Blake, I'll hand it over to you to finish us out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it would be really good, Cam. We don't always see eye to eye, and maybe next time let's do one that we know we disagree on, and see where that goes. But I appreciate the comments too, and it's obviously something that strikes a chord with folks because, like you said, we don't have all the answers. I'm not a 70-year-old guy saying, here's what I would have done. I am a 33-year-old guy that has some of those sentiments, but also, it's here's what I'm living right now. And I can tell you, since I kind of adopted some of these ideas of really taking my values and my future goals into account of how I spend my time and money, it's given me so much more peace, and it's given my wife and my family the same. And it's really impacted us on so many levels, financially, relationally, vocationally. It's really neat to see how that all intertwines. And like you said, we started talking about debt and a lady in the New York Times, but we ended up talking about money and time and how those two priorities are the ones that are so precious to us and that we have to take into account. So yeah, hey, look forward to seeing all you guys next time. And you can check out blakeandcameron.com where we put more content on there and blog about just these exact things. And we think that your time and your money decisions should be made based on your values and your dreams, not your neighbors, not the internet, not two guys on Blab. but what you and your family want to achieve. So with that, I'll say good night and see you guys next time. Thanks.
Alrighty, good night, guys.